Once hailed as a brilliant detective with an unshakable sense of duty, William Somerset is counting down the final days to his retirement. But when he's paired with the impulsive rookie David Mills to investigate a string of grotesque murders, he finds himself pulled into one last case, one unlike anything he's seen before. As the killer's twisted philosophy unfolds through each crime, Somerset and Mills realize they're not just chasing a murderer, but a meticulous mastermind. So let's dive straight in. On Sunday, Detective William arrives at a crime scene and meets Detective David, who has just been transferred. The body is that of a man who was shot. Neighbors said they heard the man and his wife arguing for hours, so police assume it was a crime of passion. On Monday morning, David wakes up next to his wife, Tracy. He is called to a new crime scene where William is already present. A large man sits dead at a table, his face buried in a plate of spaghetti. His hands and feet are tied. Under the table is a bucket of vomit. The floor is crawling with cockroaches. At the morgue, it takes 4 people to lift the body. The doctor explains that the man was forced to eat until his stomach burst. Bruises on his head suggest someone held a gun to him to keep him eating. He suspects this is the work of a serial killer, not a simple murder. At the station, William explains his theory to the captain. He says this is too big and complex to be his last case, and David is too new to handle it. He asks to be reassigned, but the captain refuses. On Tuesday, a defense attorney is found murdered. A pool of blood on the floor spells out the word greed. At the station, William learns that pieces of plastic found in the large man's stomach were actually part of the floor where his fridge once stood. William returns to the apartment and slides the fridge back, finding the word gluttony written in grease, along with a quote from Paradise Lost. He realizes the killer is working through the 7 deadly sins. Gluttony and greed have been covered, which means more murders are coming. That night, William goes to the library to study old texts about sin and punishment. William visits the David small apartment, where he notices the constant shaking from passing trains. After dinner, the detectives talk about the case. The attorney was forced to cut flesh from his own body to place on a scale, a reference to the Merchant of Venice. He bled to death. The victim's wife is living in a safe house. William and David show her crime scene photos, hoping she notices something. She points out that a painting on the wall was hung upside down. At the scene, they remove the painting and uncover fingerprints forming the words, "Help me." The prints don't belong to the victim, but they are eventually identified as belonging to a man named Victor, a criminal with a history of mental illness. On Thursday, police raid Victor's apartment. The place is filthy, with dozens of air fresheners hanging from the ceiling. In the bedroom, they find Victor's body in a bed, skeletal and wasted away. The word sloth is written on the wall above him. Boxes of photos document his slow decay over the course of a year. Just as the detectives assume he is dead, Victor suddenly coughs and starts breathing. At the hospital, doctors explain that Victor has been bedridden for a year. His muscles are wasted, his brain damaged, and his tongue removed. He is alive, but will never recover. Later that day, William and David go through the case again. David dismisses the killer as a lunatic, but William insists he is methodical and intelligent. He takes David to the library and creates another list of books related to sin and punishment. At lunch, William secretly pays a man for information. David pressures him until William admits the man is a former FBI agent who can use library records to track who borrowed certain books. Soon after, they receive a report showing that someone using the name John Doe checked out all the relevant titles. The detectives visit the address connected to the library card. As soon as they knock, a man matching John Doe appears in the hallway and opens fire. The detectives dive for cover. John flees, and David chases him through the building, dodging more gunfire. Civilians scream and scatter. A woman runs from her apartment, but when David searches inside, John has already escaped through a window. David looks out of a window and suddenly John fires at him from an alley. Using the distraction, John runs again. Furious, David climbs out through the same window and chases him across the rooftops. He sees John entering an abandoned building and breaks a window to follow him inside. Inside, David notices a trail of blood on the floor, a sign that John is injured. The chase moves through several empty corridors until John escapes again by using the fire escape. He rushes across the street, causing cars to crash and pedestrians to panic before hiding in another alley. David also climbs down the fire escape, landing in a pile of trash. He runs after John and approaches a truck, looking carefully around it, but John is already waiting. He's on top of the truck and drops down, striking David from above and knocking him to the ground. John takes David's gun and points it at his head, ready to shoot. At that moment, William arrives and John runs off into the distance. Afterward, David insists on entering the nearby apartment that they believe is John's, but William reminds him they don't have a warrant. David pretends to calm down, only to suddenly kick the door open. To cover themselves, the detectives bribe a neighbor to lie and say she called them because someone in the apartment was behaving suspiciously. With this excuse, they proceed to search John's place. Inside, the apartment is disturbing. They find a box of sharp tools and a glowing neon cross on the wall. In the kitchen, there are cabinets filled with objects John kept as souvenirs from his crimes. A drawer holds various medicines placed beside a Bible. They also find a picture of a woman in a fur coat. In another room, William discovers shelves filled with notebooks packed with John's ramblings, long writings that reflect his obsession with sin and judgment. Hidden away in a secret room, David finds photographs of every victim taken during their murders. Among them are the pictures taken by the reporter outside the police station, showing that John had been there the same day they spoke to the press. Later, the forensic team inspects the apartment. They find a box of money and a receipt, but no fingerprints anywhere. John has been careful. William studies notebooks, hoping for dates or clear leads, but none are written. Then the phone rings. David answers, and it's John. He says he admires David but won't explain more, claiming it would ruin a surprise. The detectives realize from the notebooks that John believes he is preaching, using his murders as sermons. They suspect the woman in the fur coat may be their next clue. On Saturday, they track the receipt from the apartment to a leather shop. The owner remembers John and says he made a custom order. He shows them a picture of the product. At that moment, both detectives receive alerts on their pagers. The woman in the fur coat has been found. They rush to a nightclub, where in the basement they discover her dead on a bed. The word lust is carved into the door. On the floor nearby, a man is screaming uncontrollably. He is covered with a bedsheet and shaking with trauma. At the station, David questions the club owner, but he claims he saw nothing unusual. Meanwhile, William interrogates the man in the bedsheet. He shows him the picture of John's custom product, a metal codpiece fitted with a blade at the groin. Horrified, the man explains what happened. John held a gun to his mouth and forced him to wear the device while with the woman. He had no choice. The blade killed her. That night, David goes home and quietly tells his wife Tracy that he loves her. Elsewhere, William grows restless. His metronome irritates him, so he throws it away. Unable to sleep, he passes the night by throwing a knife at his dartboard with precise aim, over and over. On Sunday, 911 receives a call from John himself. He says simply that he has killed again. Police arrive at a new scene. A woman lies dead in bed. On the wall, written in blood, is the word pride. Her hands have been glued, one to a bottle of sedatives and the other to a phone. From the wounds, they can tell John cut her face, bandaged her, and gave her a choice: call for help and live with her disfigurement, or take the pills and end her life. She chose the pills. Back at the station, William tells David he won't retire until the case is solved. Then, without warning, John Doe himself enters the station. He is covered in blood and shouts to be noticed. Officers surround him at once. David draws his gun, but John kneels, asking for a lawyer. When police try to take his fingerprints, they discover he has cut off the skin from his fingers. Both detectives agree John wouldn't give himself up so easily, and they suspect he has planned something. John's lawyer meets with the police and delivers John's demand. There are 2 more bodies hidden, and John will only reveal their locations if David and William take him personally. If they agree, he will plead guilty. If not, he will plead insanity. The district attorney confirms the blood on John's clothes belongs to 2 new victims, forcing the detectives to accept. They prepare carefully. Wires are taped to their chests so conversations can be monitored. A police helicopter will follow. The captain faces the press while David and William drive away with John in the back seat. On the way, they try to get him to talk about himself. John refuses. He says only that he must finish his work, which he insists is special. William challenges his logic, pointing out flaws in his religious reasoning, until John finally snaps into a rant. He insists that none of his victims were innocent. They were guilty of sins, gluttony, greed, lust, sloth, pride, and he was punishing them. Eventually, John tells them to stop the car in the middle of an empty field dotted with electrical towers. He checks the time and waits. Then a van approaches in the distance. William runs forward to intercept it, while David stays behind with John. William blocks the road and orders the driver out at gunpoint. The man is a delivery driver, terrified and unarmed. He explains he was paid to bring a package, addressed to David. William lets him go and orders backup to pick him up later. He then opens the box and his expression turns grim. Shocked, he radios to David and says that John now has the upper hand. Back in the field, John begins to talk. He tells David he admires him, that he paid a police officer for information about him, and that he has visited Tracy. He reveals he killed her, cutting off her head because he envied David's normal life. His sin is envy. He tells David he should complete the cycle by becoming wrath, by killing him. William rushes back and tries to stop David. He doesn't reveal what's inside the box, but his refusal is enough for David to understand. It's Tracy's head. John keeps taunting him. Then John mentions that Tracy was pregnant. William slaps him. Hearing this breaks David. He points his gun at John. William pleads with him not to do it, but David cannot stop himself. He shoots John in the head, then fires again and again until John's body lies lifeless in the dirt. In the evening, David is taken away by the police, broken by what he has done. William, weary and silent, finally leaves the force. And this is how the movie ends.